I was recommended to do a video response to Mouthy Infidel on the Labour theory of value. It's important for me to note that I support the Labour theory of value. I just do not support or agree with Karl Marx' Labour theory of value, because value in my eyes, and from Adam Smith's Labour theory of value, value is subjective. It is not objective.
Esoteric entities claim that there is no scientific evidence backing the Labour theory of value is simply factually incorrect.
So when we talk about Adam Smith's Labour theory of value, the difference is that Adam Smith asked the question, important questions in fact. He asked the question of who is it valuable to, at what time is it valuable, and where is it valuable. Value being subjective, not everybody is going to want the same things. Our needs and wants are all different from one another. We're a very complex society. We don't all like the same food, or anything for that matter.
Freshness in spiced apple and frosted pine. I'm definitely going to be getting one of each of those.
We don't even like the same colours. Not all of us are the same. It's not objective, and this was the problem with Karl Marx's Labour theory of value. Value isn't objective. If it was, everybody would all have the same needs and wants. And this isn't something scientific. It's not something that's unproven. You won't see people decorating their house exactly the same. And you most certainly wouldn't see people in a restaurant ordering the same food. Human beings are very complex. And even then, people's, needs and wants change. They change persistently and constantly over time. Just because you want something now does not mean to say that you want it 6 months from now, or even a week from now, or a month. Who is it valuable to? In other words, when you're producing something, who's your target market? In other words, who are you basing this production towards? The second question, where is it valuable? Take ice cream for example. Ice cream might be of greater demand in Florida during a winter period than it would in New York. Because in New York you're going to have a winter period, it's going to be really cold, there's going to be less of a demand for it. Meanwhile, in Florida, when they're sweating buckets or that, or even in Texas, they would probably have a far greater demand for such a thing like that. Therefore, you know where you're going to allocate the resource. So the resource would go to that specific part of the market. And that's just a small example. Even then, you have the question of at what time is it valuable? Value will change with time. It's why prices fluctuate. If you were to look at summer clothing, for example, summer clothing will be in greater demand during a summer period. Florida being hot all year round, though, is just one of these places where you're going to constantly have a high demand for that specific item. But when you move out of the summer period and you start heading closer towards the winter period, the demand changes. People no longer want the summer clothing, they start to demand that of the winter clothing. This was the problem again with the Marxist Labour theory of value. The Marxist Labour theory of value did not take that into account. That is to say that Karl Marx's Labour theory of value saw value as something fixed and price as something knowable.
In every case in which a nation or a place has attempted socialist planning, that nation has been berated by worldwide sanctions and embargoes and Western imperialist-backed coups. For examples of this, we can look at the USSR, Chile, Venezuela, Cuba, literally every major example you can think of in which a country has attempted to establish Marxism or socialism and try planning, that place has been met with massive intervention.
When it came to Chile hit hyperinflation in 1972. Now this was caused by all the price and wage fixing and of course running the printing press, and this is something I will cover later on the money issue. But because there was barely a private sector left, they were forced to run the printing press in order to try and bail themselves out, and that's what led them to hyperinflation. We've seen it countless times throughout history. The United States of America did not get involved in Chile until August of 1973. That being the CIA interrupted in 1973 in August, and then of course the coup d'etat took place in September of 1973. A whole year before the US got involved, Chile was already facing hyperinflation in 1972. That completely debunks his entire argument. Furthermore, if that wasn't enough, you have Venezuela, where they love to say it was all the United States of America's fault. No, it wasn't, because the United States of America did not impose economic sanctions, that's economic sanctions, on Venezuela until that of mid-2017. That was long after Venezuela already hit hyperinflation.
Second, the places and the times which this has been tried didn't have the modern technology that we have now, which is required to efficiently take into account and communicate things like labor values and supplies of different resources in order to efficiently allocate resources. However, with modern technology, this could be done relatively quickly and relatively efficiently, as Paul Koksha explains in his book Towards a New Socialism, where he drafts up a model of planning using modern technology, which could efficiently allocate resources without market mechanisms.
Paul Cockshott and Mouthy Infidel really don't understand the economic calculation problem. They don't comprehend the fact that technology is never going to be able to solve the problem. So I've already covered on both parts. In part 1 to do with the profits and losses, and in part 2 I covered on the variety of options and the nightmare that they would be faced with, and of course the correlation prices have between the variety of different products. The whole thing on the problem with the technology, no matter how advanced it becomes in terms of artificial intelligence, it's never in a million years going to be able to read people's minds. Never. It can become intelligent and it can become human-like in its own thought process, but it's never going to be able to achieve reading people's minds. Now, you could go along with the argument and say, well, it could read what people are doing and follow them around, and through people's actions it can take all that information in. Yeah, that's very good. People would never trust that because that's like living in a surveillance state. People love their privacy. So if you take consumer demand out of the equation, how then do you know from a population of 70 odd million people, or over 300 million people living in the United States, how do you know the needs and wants of each and every single individual of society? You do not know that information. And even on top of that, people's needs and wants are endless, right? People's expectations far exceed, reality. It's far too complex even for that of some, robots or other technology following them around. So it's never going to be able to read what people want. In order for you to know what people need and want, you're going to have to leave it down to the consumers. And that's leaving it down to capitalism. And even then, the economic calculation problem, you have the knowledge problem. And this is something that you saw throughout Cuba with the outdated cars. You saw it with British Rail, the outdated trains. The technology was unable to advance and improve over so many years. And that is because there is no information there of prices in order for them to be able to, technologically improve over time.